So what we have in India, 75% of the system pretty much works in this way. It's the federal university model. So you have the state ministry of HR, which influences the university through Senate membership, and through senior recruitment. So at the selection of the vice chancellor, the provost, or the registrar, and so on, all of this, the state is present. They also have membership of the Senate. Now this is what leads to the politicization. Okay, then you have the university which does affiliation, curriculum, and degrees. By and large, of course, you have universities which also teach, but very small in proportion. And then you have three kinds of college. About 3/4 of the colleges are affiliated public and aided colleges, where again the state has direct membership of control. They also have university controlling as well as academics of the institution controlling it. So it's a three-way uneasy alliance. Then you have the private colleges, which today make up 25% of the total. And there it's trustee-led. This also is a problem because faculty really has no role here. It's very much driven by trustees. And then you have the autonomous colleges, which are very small. They're less than 0.5% of the total right now. And there, this structure that has been put in by the national regulators calls for joint government. The trustees look after things like location, siting, costs, and the academics determine things like what are tuition fees, even how many students to enroll, which disciplines to teach, how to teach, textbooks, and so on. Okay, and what you have is the national regulators sort of pushing for approval of HEIs to be made mandatory and also mandatory accreditation. So there's a system in flux. The problem comes in the objectives. Next slide, please. So as a state ministry of HRD, which is really the driver of the goals of education, because education, although it's a concurrent subject since 1976, the provision is clearly in the hands of the state. They have these 4 goals firmly in their minds: access, equity, cost, and quality. So if you see those little bars, sort of green is the top priority, blue is next, red is third, and then purple or brown is fourth. So the state ministry has these 4 goals in mind. You have the union ministry, which is pushing quality over the other goals, and it's got access, equity, and cost as its second, third, and fourth goal. You have the regulators pushing quality first, and then equity, cost, and access. Then you come to the university, and here's where you see the first conflict of interest. You have the state governing something where the university has different goals, and they're interested in quality, access, cost, and equity. You come down to the level of the colleges, and then the affiliated public and aided colleges then adopt the goals that they have, and for them access is key. And then you have equity, cost, and quality. For the private colleges, cost control is key, and then you have quality, access, and equity. And for the autonomous colleges, quality is first, and then cost, access, and equity. So this sort of conflict of objectives, like a non-conformance of objectives, is a big factor along with politicization in really degrading the university of today as we know it. Next one. If you look at how it's shown, this is the organization chart of the academic affairs for a well-run institution. This I took from an IIT. So you have the Dean of Academics, who supervises the head of departments, which looks after instruction. And then you have Vice Dean for HRD and Placement, which looks after recruitment and internships. And of course, research centers, which are small, because even the IITs mostly are teaching institutions. And then you have the Vice Dean for Academic Support, the registrar, and looks after a whole range of activities, admissions, financial aid, libraries, student housing, counseling, academic planning, the catalog, the enrollment, sports and extracurricular, assessment and examinations, approvals and accreditation. So it's pretty centralized. So, go to the next one, please. Now I'm going to compare that with the US model, where really you have a different system. So you have the private colleges, which are autonomous, which make up about 10% of the total. Their average tuition fees are 25,000. The number one focus is quality of teaching. If you go to the extreme right, you have the private universities, which are multidisciplinary, large bodies, where the average tuition fee is 35,000. They make up about 20% of the student body, or cater to. Their primary goal is quality of teaching and research. Cost, access, and equity are next. The state has the same mandates in both countries. Of course, there's no wall in between of this affiliating university. And then you have the public university with pretty much the same goals as the private university, with some difference in that the state tries to make sure that they take a more wide approach. So they will locate those universities more favorably to guarantee access. So in some ways, access becomes a little more of a focus. Then you have the public university, which is considered local. So for those of you, say, from California, you would recognize, who have studied there or know about it. You have the University of California system, which is the public university at the state level, and then you have the Cal State system, which is a public university at the local level, so San Francisco State, San Jose State, and so on, where tuition comes down sharply, because there the idea is to make education affordable. Okay, so cost is the goal, and the state subsidizes it much more heavily. And then you have the community college, which accounts for, so just in terms of percentage, 35% of students go to public universities, 35% go to local public universities, 35% to state. And the community college is like a feeder system, where roughly about 30% of students start off. And then they, of course, year 3 and 4, they go to a 4-year college, should they continue. And here the state is concerned with equity. Okay, so costs are kept very low. Look at the average tuition fee, $2,000. That would be considered affordable here as well. And this is sort of the jewel of the system, in the sense that you get substantial state investment. It's a chance to get up to speed. And there's enough research to show that actually students who start off in community college and then move on to a 4-year college do better than those who started in the 4-year college, even after adjusting for age differences and so on. Okay, so, and then next slide, please. You see how decentralized the governance is. If you look at, no, you went the other way. Sorry, so maybe I just keep going one more. Yeah, decentralized, this is the one. So you look at what the head of department looks after now. Other than just instruction, the head of department looks after admissions, advising, instruction, research centers at the department level, admissions, assessment, approvals, recruitment, and finance. Of course, finance is shared, and then the registrar only does a few things which are cross-department, so much less to do. The Dean of Placement and HRD is now replaced by a Vice Dean of Research who looks after pedagogy, technology, compliance, and independent research center. Next slide. Next one, please. Even within the department, whereas in India, the HOD really manages everything. Here you see much greater decentralization. Faculty are given responsibilities for various things. So in fact, there will be faculty in charge of research centers, in charge of even faculty recruitment and placement. It's just a memo to the upward saying this is what we have decided. So in this decentralized environment, you have different kinds of outcomes. So when I started by saying that the quality of teaching in India is poor, I was also trying to link it with this point that the governance system encourages a poor quality of teaching. And if you have a college, a private college, for example, where the trustees have all the power and the faculty have none, you're not going to get good outcomes. If you have a university system where the state and university managers are pretty much dictating what happens in the public college or the aided college, you're not going to get good outcomes. And that's where the education takes place. Next one, please. So essentially, if I conceptually show it as two kinds of models, you can have a faculty-driven higher education system where all positions from the Vice Dean upwards are occupied by senior faculty, decision-making decentralized departments, limited focus on cost control above departments, performance is measured at the level of the department. Whereas what you have in India is a management-driven system, whether it's at the state university or at the autonomous or at the private college. All management positions except HOD are open to anyone. Emphasis is on professional managers occupying positions such as Deans of Business Affairs and Development. Focus on departments as cost centers, greater academic surveillance, emphasis on the student as client. Next one. Just to wrap up, this is the last slide. So basically, what you have in India is a higher education governance based on the federal model, because a unitary institution, that is a self-governing institution that Prime Minister Nehru promoted, was too costly, and the autonomous university was politically difficult. The objectives of stakeholders, as I pointed out, can conflict. The autonomous college emerges now, but it hasn't really grown much, although everyone talks about it. If you go back over the last 4 years, we had 204 autonomous colleges in 2006. Today we have about 300. That's not enough of a growth in a system where you have about 27,000 colleges. The national government clearly wants the university to die out. The traditional university, without telling the state so, but if you read the report to the people that was published by the HRD department in July of last year, you read all the documents of the HE behind the HER bill and all the minutes of the HER bill deliberations, fascinating reading. It's clear that their goal is the university system has failed, it's too politicized, it should die out and be replaced by the autonomous college. I don't know if that will happen. Unfortunately, reform has not been driven by civil society. Some of the things that was talked about in the earlier presentation, it's really the national government that drives reform. And its power is now much weaker in the era of coalitions. So all these come together to mean that quality has not yet been achieved, is still elusive, but certain things have happened. I think one should recognize immense progress in access, equity and cost control. But there are risks in a private-driven system, which is really the balance of education will shift heavily towards profession, and you won't get sort of well-rounded education that you want. I was very interested yesterday to hear about PDPU, sort of an experiment where you have an American model, but I really think this is something where you need an Indian model. You need to think through what is it that we need. You can't have the large university, for example, here, as long as you have such a widely diversified and spread out population. And you need to consider a shift from a management-driven to a faculty-driven model. Thanks very much. It was